weekend angler. I am so honored and proud to be part of Bassin Magazine, especially proud to be the Bassin Magazine podcaster. Tonight, Brad Yo will not be here. He has some prior commitments. Man, that guy is just busy. But we're still going to provide you with quality content. Speaking of quality content, I have a kayak bass tournament angler on tonight who just got done with Lake Hartwell. I cannot wait to hear about Lake Hartwell. I've never been to Lake Hartwell, but I've heard so much about it, and I don't think I really want to go there. But anyways, without further ado, I bring you none other than Mark Edwards from West Virginia. How you doing tonight, Mark?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, you are very welcome. You know, I can't do this podcast without guys like you, Mark. I'm really not that interesting, so.
Well, you had me on to talk about a lake after I finished 40th.
Well, you know.
But we was going to be on last week, and I didn't. It was my bad.
That really doesn't matter to me where a guy finishes. I want to hear how you caught fish on this lake and you've never been there before, have you, before this tournament?
No, I've never been there.
I find that interesting, man. Yeah, of course, everybody wants to hear from the winner, but, man, I want to hear from the guys who went there. I want to hear how your practice went. I want to hear how you picked the lake apart. I followed around the BFL for years. And boy, I tell you, I would go to lakes that I've been fishing my whole life. And boy, it's different when you're there fishing a tournament and all of a sudden there's, go to my favorite spot and there's nobody there. What happened? 150 guys in this tournament and So you go to Lake Hartwell. It's a herring-based fishery. And you're from West Virginia, which is probably shad-based, isn't it?
Yeah, there's no herring here.
Yeah. I don't know where else there's herring. I know I caught herring up in Alaska, or I used herring for bait up in Alaska.
Yeah, Smith Mountain Lake is like 2 hours away, and it has a little bit of herring in it. And I've done well down there in the past.
Okay.
Boat tournament stuff, I've done well.
Okay, here's something interesting. How do you pick apart a lake? What are the differences in picking apart a lake with a kayak versus a bass boat? Other than the obvious, the obvious is you only have to launch your boat once with a bass boat, so you don't have to be as careful.
Yeah. It's a big deal. Most of the time, there's nothing 100% in fishing, and most of the time, I really choose an area and try to pick it apart in practice. I usually fish it 2 or 3 days. I'm not the one to, unless it's blowed out or something, with weather or something like that. I just really try to figure out an area and how to catch fish in that area. And this area, like I listen to a lot of old Bassmaster classics. They've been to Hartwell several times, and Casey Ashley in 2018, he just said the biggest fish in the lake lived down next to the dam. And he said that multiple times. And then Brandon Cobb, when he won a few years ago, he said the area he actually won from isn't the best area of the lake. It's just he's just most familiar with that area. He said the best area is the bigger fish are down next to the dam. So with the weather, I always look at the weather, and they had forecasted Saturday and Sunday to be not too good of weather. Saturday was rain. Actually, I think Thursday, 4 out of 3 days it rained or something like that.
Wow.
And, just a little bit. It wasn't really, really too bad. I mean, just a steady drizzle, like it wasn't downpouring or nothing. But the winds changed a lot of directions and stuff. And the winds were supposed to be like 10 mile an hour Saturday, and Sunday they were supposed to be up to 14 to 15 and gust even more than that. So I kind of paid attention to the wind direction, chose a big lake. I mean, I really don't even know the name of the creek down there. It's one of the biggest creeks on the west side of the lake. And I was within a few miles of the dam, but I was on the lower end of the lake. And I put in the back, I like the rule now where we have ramps to choose from, because I mean, it actually, you don't have to search for ramps now. I mean, it's just, it's there on the map. So I picked a ramp, and I drove down Tuesday after work. So I usually, like last year, we had 3 days of practice, official practice. This year, we're allowed a week. But I mean,
Wow.
I still work for a living, so I don't get a week to
Still,
practice. So
you still work for a living. Yeah.
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 So so after a 12-hour shift Tuesday, I drove down to Hartwell, which is, I guess, 4 hours drive after work. Um, and I went to the ramp, and I fished that 2 out of the 3 days I was there. And the only other place I fished was the last day of practice. I just adjusted tackle, got all my tackle ready the last day of practice, and was just in a creek that was north of it, just the next ramp north. I wasn't a few miles on the water away from the ramp I choose to fish. But there was just, the lake was in so many different stages. I mean, it was really
Yeah.
the area you chose on this lake mattered a whole lot. I don't think I was in a bad area, maybe at a different time. I was not, that area wasn't good when I was there. And I'm not just saying that because I did bad, but nobody else did good that was launching down there, and there were several people launched there, several really, really good people. And I only know one guy that did well the first day, and then the second day he didn't get a limit. So, um, but
So, man, if you were down by the dam, most dams are made of riprap shorelines.
yes, I thought
That's
about that. Actually, the first morning I looked for shad spawn. The morning I slept in my truck when I drove down there, I woke
yeah.
up and I drove around to every riprap I could. There was no shad spawn. It was cool that morning, because I mean, I don't know what stage the fish are in, but that's what I was kind of hoping. Maybe I could drive along, find a shad spawn, because that's feeding fish, and most of the time they're bigger fish. And I have done really well
Man,
when
when
I
I
found
think
the
of
shad
shad
spawn.
spawn, here's what I think of.
Whopper flopper.
Yeah. Man, this is my shad spawn go to right there.
Yeah, I'm a spinner bait. I'm a
You're
big
a
spinner bait guy.
spinnerbait guy for shad spawn. That works.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
why just, now that I'm not fishing tournaments anymore, I'd just rather,
It's, yeah,
if
top
I were
water
fishing
bites are
tournaments,
fun.
man, I want one hook. With one hook, you bring them
You
back to the boat.
you land more. Yes, yes. The
And
whopper
also, man,
plopper. I've lost a lot of fish on a whopper
oh
plopper.
yeah, but just watching them, man. Now that I live down here by the coast in Louisiana, throwing whopper ploppers for redfish, my goodness, that's fun. They come up and they turn over and they grab it upside down. Oh,
Yeah, I mean, I'm a type of person. I don't. I'm really open minded with lures and stuff. So I mean, I threw everything at them. I had
I
12 to
was fishing.
14 rods out every day.
Oh, in a kayak?
Yeah,
That's a mess, huh?
it ain't too bad. I mean, I think I got,
Just 12, 14 rods out on the front of a bass boat is a mess.
well, I think I got 10 or 11 rod holders, something like that. So I
Wow.
usually have 3 or 4 laying down in front of me, which
Wow.
it isn't too bad. But like, yeah, I didn't have no luck with top water, and really the ramp I chose, there was really, I never seen real good schooling action.
Yeah.
But there were 2 bridges, and that was really important. And the first hour and a half, I get in the water and I just start beating the bank. And actually, I was throwing a whopper plopper, a 110,
Yep.
and just cruising the bank. And I never had a blow up. In an hour and 45 minutes, I never seen a fish. And I'm
I'm,
like, what's going on? It's 63 degrees. It's the middle of April, South Carolina. These fish should be, even if they are post spawn, they should be fry garters. I mean, I hadn't known anything yet. I no clues. And I get to the bridge, and I have mega live. I have hummingbird, and I got a
sure.
live, and there was fish all over this bridge. And I went to a bunch of different baits, and I ended up catching 2 and 2 casts. after
Wow.
I tried a bunch of other baits, and one was a 16 and one was a 15, so they were
Yeah.
solid fish, decent. And I thought, man, I can maybe get a limit here early or something. Maybe this is somewhere I can get a solid limit, and then work my way from there. And so I started throwing a big. I hate giving away big secrets, but
There are no
I throw
secrets.
a big glide bait.
Hey, man.
The spotted, it brings out the bigger fish and you can see them. So and the only time I really ever catch one on it is if the conditions are right. But
Yes.
it's a good
You got
fish
to be on
finder.
prime real estate. It's got to be at prime time. Yes.
And the riprap along this bridge, I went on the back side of it, and I raised 85 inches of spotted bass. I mean, it was just every cast I had one or two 17 or 18 inches
And
following
you
it.
couldn't get any takers?
No, it was bright, sunny, no wind. And then like they were really following it way behind. Some of them just you'd leave it set there, and then you just see one rise up. So I fished that riprap all the way to like a little cove to the corner, and there was a few bedded fish. There was like 3 or 4 bedded fish over there.
If I get followers, but don't get takers, right
I
there.
think that what is it? Is that a?
This is a missile bait 48.
Missile bait 48. Yeah.
40 on Bruiser Flash.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I get a blow up on a whopper plopper or something,
Mm-hmm.
man, I'll throw that right afterwards, or a blow up on a frog.
Yeah.
Got that rod right next to it.
Yes, I was really thinking I could catch them fish on a shaky head or something on the bottom.
Yeah.
Because I was bringing them up, and they were like in 7 or 8 foot of water. So I was really happy to see that. There was several good fish, and I just kept beating the bank, and I finally got to the next bridge. It was about a mile away. So I get to the next bridge, I catch a couple on it, and they're in the 14, 15 inch range too. And I only catch 2, and I just quit fit. I'm like, that's working. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'm like, maybe I could fish one bridge one day and the other bridge the next day just to get a limit. And I really, dude, it was like a mile over there, and I went around a main point, and I seen a couple fish laying shallow on the point. And I mean, they were like in 2 foot of water, and they were largemouth.
Wow.
And but that was all I seen in that like mile, man. It wasn't really that many fish up shallow. And so I kept going in the back of this creek, and I ended up going all the way to the back of it. I mean, all the way to the creek. And I ended up seeing one about 22 inches in the back of a pocket. Yeah, it looked like a 6+ pound. I mean, it was a really big fish. And it had there were 2 other fish with it. And I was all the way in the back of a pocket. I had to kind of go around the dock in a pontoon boat to get in there. Like a regular boat probably couldn't even fit. And so I eased up in there and seen that, and I was like, oh man, they're probably on a bed or getting ready to make a bed. So I eased out of there, and I marked that on my waypoint. I put a waypoint, and I went all the way to the back, and I just didn't like really what I seen. I mean, you was seeing a few males that was 16, 15 inches, but not what I expected. I really thought there would be way more fish shallow. So
we have a couple of comments here I'd like to tell you. First one's from Cajun Rob. Cajun Rob's lives in, actually he's from southern Mississippi, but he lives up in southern Kentucky now. And he said, are your kayak rods any different from the rods that you would use in a bass boat?
No, they're the same.
Same exact rods. Okay, then Catching with Kyle says, hey, Marky.
Hey,
sorry,
Kyle.
I'm late. Sorry. Gosh dang my eyes. Sorry I'm late. Was mowing. Gotta make the wife happy. So you got a couple of fans here.
That's nice.
Anyways, I'm sorry for interrupting you, but I do like to make sure that our viewers get to be part of the show too.
Yeah. So the second day of practice, I chose the same. It was the second day of practice. I ended up finding I ended up, for some reason, I should have knew better. I went back to the back of that creek I launched from.
Sure.
I don't. It wasn't a good decision. You know what I'm saying? I done went in the back of a creek and didn't see much action. So then I go back into the creek right near the ramp, but it had two more bridges, so I was really interested in them too. But they, where the creek got smaller, they wasn't spotted bass on them. Like the spotted bass seemed to stay out in the deeper, the more main lake. And the bridges that I was fishing, they were 40, 50 foot. I mean, it was, it was deep, but
That's
it was still a few miles from the main lake, really. Um, and then so I went from there. I mean, I spent a half a day in there throwing frog. I really love a frog. Just
sure.
fishing really, really slow, and they'll rise. Like if they're on a bed or garden fry, they'll come up behind it, and a lot. I've catch a lot like that, big ones, and man, I didn't see it. I didn't see nothing back there, but I caught a few on a spinner bait that gave me hope, and I was just wondering about the shad spot with the. They were spinner bait on rock. Every time I got near rock, I caught one on spinner bait.
Nice.
So that kind of made me think there probably is some shad or something on them rock. And so I decided to go out. There was a marina, and actually that's where I wanted to launch. See, I forgot to mention that. The second day of practice, there was 3 ramps that was on the list that ended up getting knocked off the list. It was I drove there first, and then there was a private only, had a big gate, and we couldn't launch there. So I had to go back to the ramp. And then that's when I changed my mind and went to the back of the creek instead of going out to the marina. But I get out to the marina around 1:30 or something, and I start finding bigger fish on beds. And I catch one on a, I think I rigged up a Carolina rig. There's some points out that way that was long clay points. And I've always, with no fish, seeing many fish, I thought maybe these fish are on these points. And I caught it was one of a small 13-incher or something on a Carolina rig. And I get up towards the marina and I find a couple good ones on bed, but they didn't look catchable. They were hanging around, but I couldn't really see a bed. So actually, I never even went back to that one fish, even during the tournament.
About your Carolina rigging, were you using a straight worm or a ribbon tail?
Then speed crawl.
Speed crawl. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Well, you got to think it's mainly spotted bass fishery too, and it's small.
Sure.
Yeah. So you put a 3-aught hook in a speed crawl, man. It's hard to beat on a Carolina rig.
Yeah.
Just because they hit it, and a little trick to it, and you might think I'm crazy, but I had about a 5.5 or 6 foot leader.
No, that's not crazy.
Yeah, well, it's different. I mean, a lot of people throw, a 2 foot standard leader,
That thing's going back there doing this then.
Exactly. And then I had it on mono line. I had it on mono, so I was hoping it would rise up. Yeah.
It's going all over the place, man. You don't have that on stiff fluoro.
Well, I ended up catching my best fish in practice on that, on a point near that marina. It was a 19-incher largemouth, and nice. I weighed 3. It was right at 19 inches. It was like 18 7/8 or something, but it weighed 348. I mean, she was skinny. So
are you allowed to use nets in your
kayak?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm like a 5 foot leader.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was kind of
Even with a 7 foot rod, you're still going like this.
It was probably closer to a 6 foot leader, to be honest with you.
But it's but I could manage that with a net. But
it was harder to cast. I mean, it was kind of funky to cast, really.
Yeah. Almost like fly cast.
Yeah.
You can't skip it. Nope.
No.
Well, why would you want to skip a Carolina rig anyways?
But on the way up there, I did see a few more fish, like real shallow on points, and it was the middle of the day. So that got me thinking maybe I could jump point to point and maybe pick a couple of them fish off. And I did find one that I thought I could catch, and that really hurt me because I spent several hours in the tournament and never caught this fish. I broke it off once.
Oh, yeah. Good Lord.
It was overnight. I'm saying it was 19 or over. It was and it was a male.
Well, we've all been there.
Yeah, I'm a sucker for sight fish, especially when they stick. This dude was doing small circles, but he didn't have a spot, like a specific spot.
So
But
he's just kind of hanging around, huh?
he was slapping a spinner bait. I mean, that's how fired up he was. Anything that looked like a bait, he did not want it around.
No.
So I'm assuming, I don't know specifically on the spawn of what stage he was in. Like I
Boy,
didn't see no fried garters, and it was near the marina.
you didn't see any circles, huh?
And then there wasn't no specific bed. Like I just really don't know what the heck he was. I don't understand.
Maybe he was stupid.
Well, I was stupid for trying to catch him in the tournament.
But
But
the A Bear was just on a couple weeks ago, and he said he looks for the stupid fish.
oh yeah,
That's the whole thing behind power fishing. You're just look for the next dumb fish. Look for the next dumb fish. Look for the next dumb fish.
yeah. But see, it seemed like all the fish I seen shallow on the bank, they had all either been messed with or they just didn't seem super catchable.
They were well educated, huh?
Yeah, and I really think we talked before it come on there. It's a herring lake, so this is just my opinion, but I think herring is crack to bass. I think they're not normal. They're just, a bass say, hey, we got, we go up on the bank, we spawn, or we got little ones, we're going to watch them for a while. I think they go up there, drop their eggs, and like, I'm out. We got more crack to go catch, that's what my opinion was of the lake and what I seen. But I did see like the bigger fish heading out towards the main lake. And so the last day of practice, the other ramp was a little bit closer to the main lake, just a tad. And the little bit of time I was only on the water for 3 hours because it kind of rained off and on that day. And I just done a lot of tackle prep. And I only caught a few fish, but they were all over 16 inches. But there was some schooling action over there. But it was still the same. It was an underspin is what I was catching the fish on the bridges. Yeah. And that's what I was catching them offshore. Like you'd see a spotted bass blow out in the middle of the gut and you'd cast that underspin over and just let it sink a little bit and just barely start reeling and load up.
So you're using something like a Zoom fluke or?
Yeah, the original fluke. Yeah.
That's one of my preferred baits for redfish down here in Louisiana. Underspin with a Zoom fluke.
Yeah, the original fluke, right? Not the super fluke, not the wide one.
Yeah. I just like, color like bone.
Yeah, yeah.
Some kind of off-white, It's just really basic.
Yeah, white ice or albinos, the two that I throw. But the water got a lot clearer the farther out you got to the lake too. And then I was fortunate enough to stay with some really good sticks like Jody Queen, Casey Reed, and Justin Largan. And all of us had the same type of practice. We all kind of struggled. I think Jody, the second or third day, he seen this gigantic wolfback, a big largemouth. And
nice.
He said he'd never seen that many big largemouth together. And he was fishing more towards the main lake. And that's when I kind of knew that, man, I should have chose. But in the back of my mind, too, where I'm thinking that weather is going to set in. Them guys might, if that weather gets bad, them guys might have trouble out there. And, it wasn't going to be the same conditions that we had in practice. So, because I think the wind blew out of the east or mainly south in practice. And then the tournament, it blew straight out of the west. But like, when the tournament time come around, man, it was just really, really. I went straight to the bridge, and for some reason, I instead of starting out, because you can really catch big fish, you got to think, okay, I'm in a creek on a bridge. It's a narrowed point. So all these fish are going to go out to chase herring, even the largemouth, because that's mainly what was back there. They all got to go out that bridge, right? sometime or another, they got to swim by that bridge. So I kind of like a dummy. To me now, thinking back, I caught them fish off the main piers out in the 40 feet of water, the
Sure.
deeper part. And I really didn't focus on the shallow part. I probably should have focused more on the shallow part that morning. And it took me a while to start catching them, but I finally started throwing a shaky head down the back side of the. I didn't catch nothing actually on the bridge piers, and the
Yes.
fish just wasn't set up on the live. They wasn't set up on a pier. They were just roaming in there. And so I go down the bank, the one bank that I've seen several good fish in practice, and I catch like a 12 and a half and a 12 and 3/4. And I never caught maybe but a couple fish that size in practice. I mean, everything I was catching in practice was mostly was 15 inches or better.
That's the way it is.
Yeah, it's just so I go check some bedfish in this pocket, and the female was fired up the first day of practice. And the second day, it was almost dark by the time I got down there, and I never seen them. But I just thought it was too dark, and I was like, they still got to be there somewhere. And I go over there, and I don't see any. There's no fish over there. So I go back to the bridge, and then the boats start running around by then, And there, we had a high school tournament, and it was way up the lake. And high school tournaments, I don't know how many kids. I heard
You may
200
have
some
500
boats.
boats, man. Yeah.
Yeah, but Hartwell is a really, really, really big lake. I mean, way
Yes.
bigger than what I thought. It's 50,000 acres, they say, but it fishes really big too. But now the first day, I think in practice, I never seen more than 2 or 3 people at the ramp I chose. But tournament morning, there were 12. And then what was crazy is 10 out of the 12 went in the back of the creek where I struggled at. And I'm like, them people, they must have had a good practice. They must have figured something out.
Maybe.
Yeah, but there was only one guy out of them that actually caught fish good. But when I come back to the bridge, the sun was out and it started warming up, and I went down the other side of the riprap where I'd seen a couple fish that was up on the riprap. I mean, I guess fry garters, and I just started throwing a fluke and ended up catching a few 13 inchers. And then by the end of that stretch, I started throwing a Cinco because I knew that a couple fry garters was there. And I think I caught a 15 and a 14. So I finished out my limit there. And I just that's all. I mean, I went back to the bridge, and then I ended up catching. I started really using my live, and I found out where some of them was set up at, and I started catching them on a drop shot. And I guess it was a west wind, and where you kind of got these little points on the bridge.
Yeah.
So the wind was hitting me in the face, and then it was like, say, 12 foot on that point, and then it dropped off to 20-some foot. Well, them fish were set up on the back side of that, and I could just drift over it with a drop shot, and every time I drift over it, I would catch one. But I ended up catching a 16, and that was the biggest fish I caught that day.
So were you directly under your kayak?
Yeah, I was, because the wind got pretty rough right there. I mean, it was probably blowing 10 plus, and a kayak, that's quite a bit of wind.
Yeah.
So, I really honestly caught probably 10 fish, and like one was a 16, and I really honestly don't remember if any other ones really helped much. So I go down the other side of the riprap, and I start seeing fish laying up on the riprap. And I get to the clay bank, and there's fish cruising. I mean, I was starting to see a lot of fish cruising. And I'm throwing a Cinco around, and these fish are just not interested at all in eating.
Wow.
And so I just keep following that bank into a creek there. And I'm just seeing a lot of fish cruising, way more than I've seen all practice. And I don't know if it was the bank, if it was just a better area or what. But I couldn't get any of them fish to bite. And so then I decided I better, it's almost half a day. And I was like, man, I got some big bed fish up here. And that one fish I really thought I could catch, and which was like a 19-incher, would have helped me roughly 6 inches. So I run all the way up there, and then I caught like one in practice, my biggest one, 19-incher on a point right near that fish. So I get up that way, and there's a couple kayakers up there, and the one kid sitting on the point where I caught the bigger one, and I go around him, and I go straight to that bedded fish, and like, I've been running a GoPro this year. I'm trying to record some of the stuff, but I'm struggling with it. Like I thought I had it plugged into my Dakota Lithium battery box, and I didn't have something right. No.
Oh no.
Yeah, I got all the fish catches around the bridge and stuff, but and them GoPros don't last for maybe 2 or 3 hours on the water without charge, you know. So the battery died by the time I got up there, but I only made a couple flips at that fish, dude, and he's hitting at my jig, and I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna catch this fish. So I tried to get my GoPro working, and I couldn't get it working. I was like, whatever, I'm gonna catch it. And then I just go to fishing for it, and it's swiping at anything I throw. And I ended up getting dead. I really didn't want to hook it on a drop shot. I'd prefer a jig or something, or beaver style bait. So I started getting desperate, and I threw a drop shot in there, and man, it ate it, and I set the hook and broke it off.
Oh no.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I got excited, just the extra, because I'd caught several fish on that drop shot. I mean, and I use an FG knot, but it seemed to mess up somewhere around there. So usually if the FG knot is tied correctly, so maybe I didn't have that completely right or something.
I usually just stick to a polymer for that.
No, well, Palomar, not on the leader. I'm talking about my braid to fluoro.
Oh, okay.
Knot,
okay.
the FG knot. Yeah.
Duh. Sorry.
Yeah. I used to use the Alberto knot. I like the Alberto, but that FG, if you get it right, it's really good. But
blood knot's pretty basic, but it works.
Yeah. I had another fish. I kind of got mad at that fish. I wasted probably almost 2 hours on it because it didn't leave. It wasn't as aggressive after I hooked it, but it was still. I thought it was catchable or I wouldn't have been there, but finally said wasting time. I got a little bit of time left. I go across the creek, and I went all the way in the back of that creek too in practice, and seen a few cruisers, and I really didn't think they were catchable. I don't know what I went over there anyway, and I knew there was a good 17-inch fish, and I threw up there at it, and it wasn't interested, man. It wasn't interested. And all of a sudden, this 3-pounder, 18+ inch fish just swims right underneath the kayak, just cruising down the bank. And I mean, it's swimming fairly fast, but it's not spooked of me at all. And I skip it right over top its head, right in front of it. I mean, it ain't even a foot of water, man. My Senko's laying there on the bottom. It goes over there, picks up my Senko, just starts swimming off. And I set the hook on it. Line breaks. I mean, I think a lot of times it's not meant to be, man, because both of them rods I caught several fish on, and I know I maybe set the hook harder than, seeing it was a big one and excited. 30 minutes left in the day, and then snap, so. Well, yeah, it was a heartbreaker. So then I'm on my way back because I'm like 2 miles from the truck. So I started going around this big marina heading back, and I happened to find another bedded fish, and it's legit bed, male, female, actually female rolling on her side. Didn't have but a few minutes left, but she was spawning, so there was no way that she was going to bite. Wind blowing, time's up, day's over with. I'm 73 and a quarter or 73 and 3/4. I'm not sure exactly. 73 inches. And I was like 82nd place, which is just, for me, I was just super, super disappointed. I really thought 80 inches was achievable goal. I mean, I didn't see a lot of big fish in practice, but I really thought 80 inches was, respectable. And I knew there was going to be probably 50 people get 80 inches because that place has a lot of fish,
Yes.
And
Yes.
it was like almost 50 people had 80 inches. Um, but then the next day, I mean, I still went out there the next day early and stuff. But I chose the other ramp near the marina just because it was more towards the main lake. I already knew there was bigger fish that direction, and then I could fish that other bridge from that ramp too. And so I started fishing the points to start off with, and there were just no schooling action there. I don't know what the deal was, but no schooling action. I went to that bedfish I found the day before. Within 10 minutes, I ended up catching the male. I didn't see the female. I seen the male. 10 minutes, I caught it. It was 17 a quarter, which I was tickled. It's a good start.
Yeah. That's a good male.
Yeah. Then I decided to go around the marina and go check that fish I wasted time on the day before. And it was raining, so that made it a little bit different. But there was a little bit of shad spawn going on there, just a slight, but there was no fish in them. They would just come and spin every now and then. And that bass was going nuts, man, chasing them off. And he was, so I wasted a few more minutes on that fish before I decided to go work my way towards a bridge. And on the way there, I mean, it was a mile run to that bridge. So on the way down through there, I said, why don't I just cross this big creek and fish this northern bank? I ain't even been to the northern bank. I've been fishing the southern bank of the creek the whole time. So I do that, and actually, if you get thinking about it, we had the south wind in practice and stuff, so that side was getting beat up by wind kind of all week. So it probably had all the bait and stuff over there, and it was a good choice because I go over there and probably less than an hour, I end up having a limit, and I ended up I don't know, I caught probably 15 fish, but
Wow.
just the run of the mill limit. It was a high 70s something. And I get down to the bridge and I was thinking, I really don't think there's bigger fish on this bridge. But then I had a big fish in the back of that creek that I'd seen in practice that was probably coming off a bed, but they still might have been a female moving up. I don't know what she was doing, but so I go back in that pocket and I fish every dock on the way back there. And I'm throwing a mag draft around. I'm trying to get a bigger bite. And I catch several fish that they're slapping at my mag draft, and then I'll throw a Cinco back in there and I catch them. So
Yeah.
I'm
There
still
you go.
catching fish, but I'm just not having no big fish commit to the mag draft. And I get all the way back to that creek, and I cast up there where the fish is in the back next to like a little dock, and I mean it's real shallow. It's like 2 foot, and I don't see no fish, but I skip it up under that little shallow dock, and nothing. And then there's these lakes like that drops a lot of elevation during the winter and stuff. They all have floating docks. There's no pole docks,
Yep.
so they all got these cables that don't let their docks move left or right and all that. So it's kind of hard to fish around them. So I pulled my Cinco up over that cable, and I noticed something weird underneath that cable, just like something weird there. So I just let my bait drop, and it dropped right in there, and it was like a bluegill pecked it. It was like don't, and I kind of was like, what was that, And I'm just sitting there, and it doesn't swim off or nothing. And I was like, I'll set the hook anyway. So I set the hook, and it ended up being my biggest fish. It was 18 and a quarter.
Well, hook sets are free, man. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So I'm assuming that fish, yeah, it was a male on a bed, and that female probably come in and dropped her eggs on it, I guess. And
Well, Mark, we're coming up on 40 minutes now.
okay.
So would you like to do any shout outs?
Yeah, man, I really appreciate. I got several sponsors. Fishing Online, they've backed me since really I got into this kayak fishing and traveling and stuff. And if you if you ever need anything from Z Man or 13 Fishing, Dobbins rods, I use a lot of Dobbins and St. Croix rods. I really
Sure.
ain't got a specific rod, but they got quality gear. good prices, fast shipping.
So
Dakota
fishing
Lithium
online,
batteries. Yeah,
it's called
Dakota
fishing
Lithium,
online.
they help out a lot. And a native watercraft is I fish out of a Titan 12 foot, which I love it. It's stable, super, super stable. And Folks Custom Cranks. Nick and his dad, they travel to the classic, all these expos, and if you need any baits painted or they have a big inventory of baits that they already have painted. If you want something a little different.
Okay, the first place was called Fishing Online,
Yes.
and that's a place you can order different
Yeah.
fishing related products from.
Yeah, they actually got a new store. It's right out of Pittsburgh. It's just west of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
But
Okay.
I mean, I'm 6 hours from them, and it ain't no special delivery just for me or anything. But if two days ground shipping, and I can get it. If you
Okay.
order anything before 2 o'clock, they'll ship it out that day.
Wow.
And anything over $50 is free shipping. So, and
Nice.
they support several kayak anglers and like Dave Lefebvre, who fishes MLF, UP Tour. So it's good to support the guys that support us, that help us.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That's why I wanted to make sure everybody had that name straight. Okay. Any other people you want to thank?
My Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ.
There you go. Thank you. Thank you. Well, guys, first of all, I'd like to thank Mark for taking time out of your busy schedule to come and talk to our listeners here on the Bassin Magazine podcast. So thank you, Mark. And
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Oh, anytime, man, anytime. Also, I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in to the Bassin Magazine podcast. Guys, remember Bassin Magazine. Bassin Magazine is the magazine for the official magazine of the Weekend Angler. Again, I'm Jay Angel, for Bassin Magazine podcaster. Thank you very much for tuning in. And Mark, stick around. I'd like to talk to you for 2 minutes after the show. And guys, it's Wednesday night. Make your plans to go fishing. You only get to do this once.